Okay, we're live. For the last workshop of the event, we have another hands-on, actually get to do your own thing workshop. So Nir's going to be teaching us about Asterisk ARI, and we'll ask you to be doing interesting and fun things with it. So I give you Nir.
Okay. Wow. Being the closing act of a conference. I think it's like the toughest point in the conference.
We still have Dan yet.
Well, that is not a closing act. It's a different act. So how many of you know anything about ARI? What ARI is? Played around with it? I'm not going to ask if anybody knows what Asterisk is. If you know what ARI is, then you know what Asterisk is. As I said previously, please go to this URL right now. And the guys on YouTube who are probably watching, if you can see the URL, you're welcome to go to the link as well. There are currently 10 DigitalOcean droplets that had been provisioned, and I will hand out the SSH key at the end of the presentation. So the purpose of this workshop is to learn a little bit about ARI, what ARI is, how it works, what it does, and we're going to learn to use it using a toolkit called PHP ARI, which is, I guess, the simplest ARI toolkit you can find. It's really straightforward. The overall footprint of the ARI toolkit is very small. So let's start a little bit about what we're going to talk about. And of course, the ever-dreaded propaganda that every presentation needs to have. And a little bit about myself. Amazingly enough, I have 2 daughters. This picture was taken by our marketing team, which doesn't even represent me, for those who know me. I'm the CEO of CloudOnix. I'll tell you a little bit about CloudOnix in 2 seconds. I've been a VoIP architect, Asterisk user, Asterisk developer, you name it, for the past, I'd say, almost 10 years. 10, 12 years. Actually, a bit more. I've been using and dealing with Asterisk since about 2002. CloudOnix. What is CloudOnix? CloudOnix is primarily by developers, for developers. It is you can think about it as the AWS equivalent of Twilio. It is basically a set of tools, SDKs, APIs that enable you to build any type of telecommunications infrastructure or application without being really tied to a telco. It means that you bring your own stuff in there and you build whatever you want. We will not tell you what to do. CloudOnix is not a CPaaS, it is not a UCaaS or a CCaaS. It is whatever you want it to be. It's very different than other platforms. If you want to know a little bit more about what we do, you're welcome to talk to Eric or myself afterwards, and we'll give you the entire 20-minute spiel as to what CloudOnix is. But as the Brits say, and now for something completely different, unfortunately I couldn't find the actual audio clip, which would have been awesome right now. So in the beginning, when we think about Asterisk, and how many people are Asterisk users in the room? Pick up. Yeah, okay, so how many of you have used AGI? Jared is with both hands in the air. Yeah, AGI. Okay, how many used dead AGI? Async AGI. EAGI? Only 2 people. Great, awesome. So, so in the beginning, we only had AGI when Asterisk started, and I'm talking about 2001. More or less. And the world was incredibly happy because AGI brought into the telephony world what we all had in the web world. We had a very simple interface to create really cool things with telephony. And AGI was awesome. It still is. I really like AGI. It makes perfect sense. It's synchronous. It's methodic. It is so methodical that it drives people nuts. Normally, if you show, let's say, something like AGI to somebody who writes in Node.js, the answer is, why? Where is the events? Where are the callbacks? Where's everything? So they superimpose their world into AGI, which generates other issues. It's very easy and simple to learn. And the best thing about AGI is that it works exactly as you expect it to work. It is so methodical, it is so simple that it doesn't even give you any way to steer from the road. Now, people loved AGI. They still do. But unfortunately, it made so much sense that people started abusing it. And then started using it for all the wrong things. Really, like, totally. I had people come up to back then I used to be a consultant, a freelance consultant. People will come to me with their AGI scripts, and I would see an AGI script that spans 26,000 lines of PHP code or Perl code. Why? Why would you do anything like that? Any of you ever used FreeBBX? Who used FreeBBX? Ever seen the dial parties script? Okay, it's the most horrific piece of code I've ever seen. And of course, there's another one. Who's familiar with A2 billing? One person in the room, and that is another piece of horrific code. That simply because the thing is that AGI originally was not worked on with developers. We had mostly integrators, script kiddies, people who were not really developers working with it, creating small things, and they evolved. Kind of like PHP Nuke, if anybody remembers what that was. Still exists, okay? So eventually we got this enormous beast called Asynchronous AGI, which is a combination of, let's see how we can hook up AGI on one hand, Manager on the other hand, and create asynchronous applications. And but AGI is supposed to be synchronous. So what are we doing here? And then we got adhesion, which is an awesome tool on its own. We use it extensively in many parts of our systems, but again, it was really complicated to integrate because asynchronous AGI is the exact opposite of how AGI works. It comes from a different world. It comes from the modern web world, as modern developers look at it. Now, as web technologies evolved, the various developers that started coming into the Asterisk projects were new. They didn't know anything about AGI. They didn't care about it. They wanted asynchronous development. They wanted modern interfaces. They wanted all the nice bits and pieces of an HTTP server inside Asterisk, which they didn't really have. So somewhere around Asterisk 11 or 12, Jared, correct me if I'm wrong. ARI, first version, 10 or 11? I think 11, right? I think it's 11. Never mind. So, okay. So we got this into the point where a new tool got introduced into Asterisk, which is ARI, and a RESTful interface into Asterisk. Now, I remember looking at it for the first time, and my initial gut response was, I don't need this. Looks like a replacement to AMI. I know how to work with AMI and all its caveats. Why the hell would I need that? And the thing is, and this is the thing that people don't really understand, is that ARI is not a replacement for AMI, and it is not a replacement to AGI. If we would like to look at the Asterisk realm as a piece of software or as a project, then ARI is somewhere in the middle between AGI and ARI and AMI, because it gives you, on one hand, the ability to interact with Asterisk from a third party, but at the same time provide call control that is normally associated with the dial plan or with AGI. So it is a little bit kind of like in the middle of things when you look at it. This is my own personal take as how I see ARI. It is an external mechanism to provide call control that is cohesive and straightforward. Now, straightforward is a very big term here, because some things inside ARI really don't make sense when you see them for the first time. And the purpose of this workshop is to get you to experiment with these. How many of you have actually written an ARI program ever? So we have 5 people in the crowd. So ARI provides multiple interfaces to Asterisk into various elements that basically construct an Asterisk session, or an asterisk call. This can be bridges, channels, events, and so on. The interface is fairly extensive. Inside ARI, we have two types of requests. So normally you would connect to the Asterisk ARI WebSocket, and you can then issue out an HTTP request into Asterisk asking it to do something. Now, some requests are what I call independent. For example, originate. This is the equivalent of the AMI originate command, or the dial plan or channel originate, blah, blah, blah. But this request actually stands on its own. You don't need to have a stasis application, which I will explain in a few seconds what it is, in order to initiate. You can just drop it into Asterisk and work as if it was an AMI request. An API function call is normally associated with something called a stasis application. A stasis application is effectively a WebSocket client or server, depending on how you want to look at it, that connects into the Asterisk HTTP interface and provides Asterisk with a brand new application. That application runs on something called stasis. Now, in order to make the best use of what you want to do with ARI, you first need to go over the basics. One of the worst things you can do is to install Asterisk for the first time and then just go into ARI without really understanding the other parts of Asterisk, what a channel is, what a bridge is. I've seen developers trying to do that, bash their head against the wall, try to do it for 2-3 months, and eventually land at Dialogic with some kind of API that doesn't do any more than actually ARI or anything else. So first of all, we need to understand the dial plan, and I will not be explaining what dial plan is. Okay, I do expect everybody to know what dial plan is. There's somebody in the back clapping. Except that ARI is not a replacement to dial plan or AGI or AMI or any of the other tools. It is simply another vertical into the Asterisk realm, into the realm of call control inside Asterisk. Look for a good library. Now, we're going to be talking about PHP ARI, and I'm going to show it in a few seconds, but whatever your flavor is, choose your weapon. Previously, Jared said, sharpen your saw, then choose your weapon, sharpen that saw really well, and most importantly, contribute back to that saw so it becomes better and sharper. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about PHP ARI. So it was, PHP ARI is an evolution of a different project that I wrote previous to it, which was called Stanley. So Project Stanley was named Stanley because of the American tool company that makes like hardware tools. Everybody knows those, the yellow thingy. Okay, so they make a lot of tools. I said, okay, I need the toolbox in order to write stuff with ARI. The original version was horrific. It was so bad. It was actually based on a tool that you may or may not know, which is called CodeIgniter. Okay, so think about the entire boilerplate of CodeIgniter to do PARI. So then one night, it's pretty funny. So I was with the kids and my wife. We were on a long weekend in Jerusalem, and I just came back from abroad, and I couldn't sleep because I was jet lagged. So effectively, I sat down at a lobby with my computer, and I wrote the first version of PHP ARI completely from scratch in one night. Let alone the next day I was completely dead, but that's a different story. Now, PHP ARI has been around for about 3-4 years now, had been battle tested in multiple installations. We actually have people using it for production environments in the Far East running 6,000 concurrent calls with their systems, using singular PHP ARI-based applications, which is really cool. Primary caveats. Number one, PHP is not multi-threaded. Unfortunately, it is very different than the modern day tools like Node.js or Python. So that introduces interesting problems when it comes to dealing with multiple calls integrating with the same application. So if there's one thing you learn in college is that when you don't have multi-threading and don't have singular spaces for each one of your sessions, what do you pay for? You pay in memory. So you have to manage your sessions in a very intelligent way. There is no embedded memory manager, so you either need to embed one of your own or write your own. The simplest way is just to use an array, like simplest ever. And event handling is a little clunky. It's based on PHP React. As much as PHP React is fairly advanced, the way PHP ARI is very simple. It doesn't use all the nice bits and pieces of PHP React. Again, it's been around for a few years now. By the way, we welcome pull requests. So if you use it and you want to send fixes or stuff like that, you're more than welcome. In this session, we'll be using version 3.1 of PHP ARI. We're not going to use the master version simply because the master version is not stable. So 3.1 is stable. So how does it look? If I'm going to examine a PHP ARI stasis application, it would normally look like this. We'll have the composer headers at the top or whatever you need in there, and we'll have the application class, which actually explains what we're going to do, and the initiation of that class. Inside the application class, the primary thing that we're going to work on is called the event handler, because that part actually composes the entire logic. Now, the event handler is effectively an infinite loop that just looks at everything. Now, working with infinite loops is, let's put it this way, not as simple as it sounds, specifically when you're working inside a scripted environment. Okay, so pay attention to what you do, because if you do it the wrong way, you're going to consume a lot of memory. Okay, so make sure whatever you do in that event loop is cleaned out at the end when the call ends. And yes, of course, I totally forgot about this. Because ARI, by definition, is asynchronous, making something inside ARI work in a synchronous way is a pain in the butt. Seriously, and we're going to see an example. Now, PHP ARI version 3.1 that you'll be using doesn't include all the latest and greatest things that ARI has. For example, multiple file playback inside the playback paradigm. So you'll have to re-implement it yourself. And maybe we will dish out a new version later on this day just for fun during this workshop. So how does it work? So inside the event handler, we use stasis events on as a reader, as a callback to whatever we need to do. The writing is very much similar to what you would find in JavaScript for anonymous functions. We just use lambdas. Here we have an example of basically stasis start will be the beginning of a call, saying, okay, a call had been intercepted into a stasis application. Stasis end, basically the call has ended and had disconnected from the stasis app. At this point, basically, we say, okay, we'll answer the call, we'll play back a file, call disconnect, we'll just dish out a log message. Now, remember, ARI is asynchronous. So initiating two different actions at the same time yields very interesting results. For example, if you will basically dish out two playback requests, one after the other, for example, if I'll go back to this line, if I will write here playback, and I'll have another line of playback, both playbacks will play instantaneously, together. Not one after the other. It will be a mix. It's really funny if you want to do something really obnoxious, is to take this and have a male Asterisk demo congrats message, and then the Allison demo congrats message, and have them fight inside the Asterisk server, just playing back together. It could be really funny. And if you want to make it really funny, create a web app that integrates and increases the volume and decreases the volume on the other randomly, like they're fighting. If somebody does that during the workshop, that's awesome. It's really cool and funny. If you need something to be synchronous, you need to make sure that you get to the end of the previous command. For example, this is a little old, but for example, here I'm waiting for the playback finished, indicating that a playback had been resolved and had been completed, and I'm going to the next action. So the next action could be either another playback or a continue to something else. Session handling is important. Now, because there is no multi-threading and you don't have individual threads for every call, that means all of your calls run and connect to the same Stasis app. And they can all interact with one another all the time. Now, it's really funny. When people don't realize this and don't understand this completely, they end up with calls basically disconnecting other calls. So it's pretty funny to see it. Unless you're really looking to do that. Like, if you're in a call center, it could be an interesting thing. You got my sale. Why have you got my sale? I don't know. The script has a bug. Okay. So let's have a small look at an actual PHP ARI application. The minute I get my screen back. That is not what I meant to do, but whatever. And I'm going to the wrong side. And of course I don't have internet because I didn't want people to bug me. And problems, eh? Yeah, it's a Mac showing a BSOD. Believe it or not. And where's my mouse? Oh, here it is. Okay, so if you go into the PHP ARI webpage, basically, you can go into the samples environment, in samples directory, and you'll see various small samples. The sample that you'll be using inside the workshop is a copy of the basic Stasis application. Okay, so you can actually take that and start working from that and elaborate. So you can see here the constructor that basically builds your basic connector to Asterisk. We have a DTMF sequence reader, event handler, connection handlers, and an executioner. It's really simple to use. If you just follow the code, it's mostly self-explanatory. Okay, so don't be alarmed about that. Okay. Okay. If we're trying to, the Stasis application that I challenge you to write is an app dial replacement. By the way, if you're going to do this, make sure you can handle multiple concurrent dials at the same time. So, a call should be accepted into Asterisk and connect to your Stasis app. Stasis will create a new bridge. This is how it's supposed to work. We'll create a new bridge according to a previously allocated bridge ID using the Stasis app that you are currently running. At that point, you will originate a call to your destination. When the destination answers, you will connect that call to the bridge. Okay, if you need, of course, some kind of data storage environment, you can use AskDB to do that. Okay, it's the easiest thing to do. Basically, you can create what I normally will call a dial session. We'll give it a session ID, and it will actually contain the information of various channel IDs that Asterisk will then use and utilize in order to make sure the application works correctly. We can then hook up the various legs, inbound and outbound, and the state. The minute both legs are connected to the conference, we say connected, and we have an active call. Again, this is a very, very, very simple example of how you can build a dial replacement for ARI, with ARI, sorry. So what's up next? So one of the things I really want to do is currently the REST API client that is embedded into PHP ARI is based on a small utility called PEST, a small library called PEST. I would really like to migrate that into Guzzle. If somebody wants to take that as a challenge, you're more than welcome. Adding a built-in session handler, maybe a connector to Redis, memcached, that is built internally, I don't know. What would you like to see in there? It's up to you. Again, as I said, pull requests are welcome. You're welcome to contact me through phpari.org or at CloudOnix if you have questions about ARI, PHP ARI, about CloudOnix, whatever you want. And now in order to make life really interesting, and we're going to do something that wasn't really done in the conference, it's going to be the following. So, it's a good thing the camera doesn't see what I'm doing here. So, we have two prizes. We have a Digium A20, which is an, yay, graciously provided to us by Digium. This is an Asterisk phone. This is not the Digium phone, these are the A series. So that will be prize number one. We then have an OBHI router ATA, which is both an FXO and FXS. Everybody's like saying, oh, shameless plugs. So the idea is this. So in this, you got a link that shows you all the IP addresses at the beginning, and you can download the SSH key to be able to log on as root to any one of those machines in this address. The guys on YouTube can see this, by the way? Yeah, it's visible? Awesome. So I'm actually inviting everybody in the room right now, and everybody on YouTube that is currently watching this, to participate in a 90-minute hackathon. So the idea is this: log on to the machines, you already have PHP ARI installed, you have Asterisk installed, there are no firewalls on the machine, there's no fail to ban, there's nothing. Literally, it's bare bone, bare metals. Your target is very simple. Within the next 90 minutes, we got 94 minutes, I want you to create the most outrageous thing you can create with PHP ARI. It doesn't have to do anything fancy. It doesn't have to do anything that is useful. It can be crazy. It can be funny, whatever you want. You want to hook it up to a SIP trunk that you have and push in DID numbers so everybody in the conference can see how cool you are? Awesome. The best two implementations, okay, and they'll be chosen, one by myself, the other will be chosen by Jared, okay? The best two will get these prizes. In addition, the top three finalists, which will be the best two, and the third one will get a personalized CloudOnix swag pack, which includes a backpack. Eric, can you lift that one up? You can look at the back. That's what it looks like. And some other cool shit that we'll send over from our office. Okay? So in order to participate, in order to do that, one, you need to fill out the form so we'll know who you are. And if you want to tell us what you did, that'll be awesome as well. Yeah? Yep. If you want to participate, GDPR, this is what it takes. You need to put in your email and your name. I'm not asking for your phone number. So, for the people watching on YouTube, unfortunately you're not with us, but you're welcome to create the demo and write next to it what we can do with it. And if you're going to assign a public access phone number that we can dial into and see what it does, that'll be awesome. And if it's really, really good and exciting, you will also get a swag pack. But you have to prove that it's yours, and you have to prove that it's doable, and that it works. Gentlemen, start your keyboards.